Tony Kurtz in the studio to talk about the upcoming election. Tony, boy, it's getting down there, isn't it?
It is, Phil, and thank you for having me. I think this is very nice that your station has both candidates on. I think that's very generous. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no problem. So you're running again. How many times is this for you?
So currently we're in the 50th Assembly District, and so I've had the honor to serve for, this is my third term, so I'll be ending my third term. And then obviously with the maps, we've talked a lot about the maps and the redistricting. Our district will change to the 41st. And so, we are both running for the 41st Assembly District. And so it's been an honor to serve. I think I've been true to my word to try to help rural areas as much as I can, and I'll continue to do that.
I know that you know the area real well. You've represented quite a bit of the area before, but you have all of Richland County now, right?
It's just a little shift. Before I had all of Juneau County and parts of Sauk like Reedsburg, and then I only had Richland Center, the city, of course, and just some of the townships north. But now, to your point, I'll lose all of Juneau County with the exception of the 5 townships to the south, and then all of Richland County, which I'm excited about. And then I actually go over to the Wisconsin Dells, Lake Delton area. That's also a new area. Actually, I was there yesterday knocking on doors. So, yeah, it's a little different area, but I think I have pretty good. What I found yesterday in the Dells, people knew kind of who I was because it's right on the edge, and I think it's going to be similar here in Richland County. I mean, they may not have seen my face, but maybe they've heard me on the radio or things like that.
When you're knocking on doors, what's the biggest thing you hear, the biggest concerns from possible voters?
It's all over the board. Yesterday there was some issues with obviously property taxes. That seemed to be a theme yesterday. The Dells area, Delton area, they had a big reassessment of values, and of course that was sticker shock to a lot of folks. Obviously just the inflationary pressures. I was in a very nice little neighborhood yesterday in Lake Delton, and security came up. It was a very nice mobile home park and a lot of older residents, and they were one of the first things they said, I said, how is, do you like this neighborhood? 2 of them said it's safe, it's secure. So I could tell that that's important to them. And it was. I was walking the streets, and next thing I know, this pickup truck shows up, and it was a maintenance guy from the area, and kind of said, what are you doing? And I told him. He said, oh, okay, that's kind of neat. And I said, well, you're checking, aren't you? And he goes, yeah. And I said, that's pretty cool. So just the whole gamut. Obviously, we hear a lot about the inflationary pressures. That seems that we hear some on the border. We've heard something, obviously, about K-12 education. All voters are. It's interesting because sometimes it's more of the national issues that's driving the conversation, and obviously yesterday it was more of the state issues like the property tax. What can we do to help, especially our senior citizens? So those are some of the issues that I've been hearing at the doors. So.
Do you hear much about the top of your ticket? The Republican Party? Or
not? Oh, no, I do. I was at an event last night in Wisconsin Dells, and that topic came up. What are your thoughts about the 2 candidates? And I share those. It's interesting. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm overly excited about both. I just wish we would focus on the issues, and I think that's kind of been my mantra over the years. Let's focus on the issues. How do we make our area better? How do we get our area to succeed? And I think we all want that.
Indeed. So how do we go about that, Tony, in your eyes here in the next few years?
I think you're going to continue to see, obviously over the last 3 budgets, we've what I will call slow and steady. We've done some very good budgets, and you have to understand, I came in 2018 with Governor Evers, so all I know is split government. And I have said this before. I've said this on the air with you. Split government is not necessarily a bad thing. I think we stopped some of the things that could occur on obviously the far left, which I don't think are good. And to be fair, there's some things on my side of the aisle, the Republican Party, where some things on the far right are not good either. And so I think it is a balancing act. I know, unfortunately, we've talked about this, so everybody thinks that we aren't getting along, that things aren't getting done. That's actually furthest from the truth. There's things we don't agree on, that's true, but there's a lot of things that we do agree on, and I'll go back to the state budget. We've had split government, but over the last 3 budgets, we had the governor, and to be fair, he's done some partial vetoes, but he has signed that budget, and those budgets I'm very proud of. We've done historical investments in roads, bridges, broadband. You're going to continue to see that, and we've talked about there is a huge need for infrastructure spending, and I think you're going to continue to see that moving forward. And just investing in our priorities, I do think Wisconsin is a high tax state. I think most people are seeing that. One of the things that disappointed me last session, and we did talk this before, is the governor did veto the tax cut for our senior citizens over 65, and basically what that would have done is exempt retirement income for many of those over the age of 65. He vetoed that. I personally have already told my colleagues that's one of the first things I want to try to introduce next session, because I think that was a mistake, particularly with what I find with our senior citizens on a fixed income. These inflationary pressures, I know they're taming down a little bit, but not. They've really felt the brunt of this, and I think if we could somehow give them some tax exemption from their retirement income, I think it was roughly like $1,500 a year back into their pocket. I think that's something we need to try again, and hopefully the governor will have a change of mind, because I think he's probably hearing it as well.
You've heard a lot about education. I've had several administrators in here in the studio, and facing some operating referenda and things like that. And how do you look at that in the future, Tony?
Well, one thing I want to talk about is a lot of people don't understand. So Governor Thompson, many years ago, worked with a Democrat legislature and had the gold standard, what I will call 2/3 funding. Well, the last 2 budgets, we actually have been at 2/3 funding for K-12 education. So when you look at the state budget, roughly it's a $90 billion 2-year budget. $19.5 billion actually goes toward K-12 education. It is the largest general purpose revenue expense that the state has. And this last budget, it was $325 per student per year is what all school districts got. Now, to be fair, the budget before, we did not do an increase, and the reason why is if people can remember, all the school districts got a lot of federal money, and the thought was we wanted them to use that federal money first, and they did. Last budget with a $325 per student per year, that is a catch-up, and I think over the next couple budgets that will catch up for the needs of the school districts. Now, one thing I want people to understand is we run a 2-year budget in the state, and each year it's $325 per student and then $325 for the second year, but it builds upon that. So over a 2-year budget cycle, it's actually $975 per student over the 2-year budget cycle, because it builds into the base. That $325 the first year, and then the $325 the second year. But remember, that first year, it builds upon it. We know that's what the thing. It builds into the base moving forward. And so when we do our state budget, everybody is talking about the $3 billion surplus we have right now, and that's great. But you also have to take into account we have to worry about cost to continue. And so the $325 per year, the governor, that was one of his partial vetoes. That $325 per year actually, I will say, it's kind of in perpetuity, because he partially vetoed it to include it for 400 years. Now, that case is in front of the Supreme Court right now. We'll see how that plays out. But next budget, every school district in the state is going to get $325 first year, $325 the second year, and once again, that builds into the base. So I understand their concerns and the pressures they're feeling right now. I believe we've given them the tools to do what they're doing, actually take it to referendum, okay? Because we, as a state, we're at 2/3. If they want to go above and beyond that, which they have every right to do that, then take it to those voters and say, okay, this is what we need, and this is why we need it. And then voters, as they are going to choose in November, do we want to do this or we don't want to do that?
You're a farmer. Lots of issues facing the ag community too, Tony.
Yeah, the ag community is in some real bad shape. I can't understate that enough. Between the commodity prices, between milk prices, I was talking to some dairy farmers the other day over in Reedsburg, and just for a lot of our dairy farmers, the only thing that's kind of keeping them up is kind of the price of cull cows and other cows. It's just cattle prices are incredibly high. Grain guys, same thing. The prices are not good, and it looks like we're going to have probably a very good, even though some of our fields don't look at that way right now. Preliminary, it looks like we're going to have a good corn crop and a good soybean crop nationwide, which obviously puts pressure on the. We are having some phenomenal weather right now. I know I've talked. My corn in my fields, I can't believe how dry it's. I talked to a guy yesterday that was going to try to do some high moisture corn. Went out and tested it. It was already at 19%. So I think moving forward as a state budget, we have done some things for ag. I'm open to a lot of ideas to see what we can do at a state level to try to help with some of that. But a lot of those programs are at the federal level.
Why are you running? Why do you continue doing this, Tony?
Well, one, I do enjoy what I do. It is an honor to serve. I try to represent myself in a way that I try to listen to all angles. Sometimes I drive my wife nuts because I do look at both sides of an issue. And there's more work to be done. Like I said, we have done a lot of investments in key things, but there's more to do. That last session, I was very proud that we did get the shared revenue across the finish line. That was it hasn't been done for over several decades. And I'm excited that now these municipalities, one, they got their increased shared revenue, but also they're going to be tied to the growth of sales tax. I was getting a text message from one of a county board member in Juneau County last night, and she said, boy, hey, we're getting an increase too. So that's is going to work through. So those are the type of things I want to continue to build on. You talked about K-12 education. I am all willing to sit down and look at other options for that. Particularly, the big thing. Obviously, you got all the referendums. The big thing right now is special education. That is a huge expense for our school districts, and it has increased tremendously over the last several decades about the need for special education, and just and our teachers. Let's be honest, they are given so much on their plate. Years ago when I went to school, they were this teaching, but now there's so much more. Their teacher, their counselor, their mental health provider. It's so I am more than willing to look at what we're going to do with special education. But once again, we're in split government, and there's things like I just mentioned to you earlier about I would love to see that. Tax exemption for retirees over the age of 65. Well, the governor probably wants more for special education. Well, let's work together and figure out, you want this, we want that. I'm willing to sit down at a table and come up with some ideas to get that done. And so that's why I'm still running, because there's still some work to do, and I'm still excited about figuring out a way to get those things done.
One of the key things, I know you'd like to encourage people just to get out and vote, right?
Yeah, regardless, obviously, Republican, Democrat, Independent, this is your chance to exercise your right to vote. And I know a lot of people say, well, it doesn't matter. On the contrary, this election, regardless which way, it's going to be decided by, some experts say it could be, especially if you look at the last four. The last several, it's been decided by 20,000, 30,000 votes. So, a vote here, a vote there actually does matter. And it's also down ballot. There was a state Senate race over in La Crosse a couple of years ago. A very good friend of mine, Dan Kapanke, he lost by 60 votes in a over 100,000 or 180,000 votes were cast. He lost by 60. So, and Brad Pfaff won by 60. So my point is, you look at both sides, that one vote does matter. And we have an opportunity. My wife and I are both going to do our absentee ballot. I've already requested it. So that's the thing. Don't feel we have every opportunity to vote early, and we as Republicans, for years we want to vote on this day, and I respect that. But now you never know what could happen. It could be weather. You could fall ill. Take that opportunity to get out and vote, and take an opportunity to do absentee ballot. And I do want to give a shout out to our clerks. I've talked to a couple clerks that they've been yelled at already. They've been scolded. Our clerks are working incredibly hard. They're just selfless servants. So just our clerks are just the messengers. I mean, they're just following the law. So just give them a little break, please.
Anything else you'd like to add, Tony?
No, just once again, it's been an honor to serve. I'm still have work to do for our area, and I think we did deliver on some things last session, especially for this area, and we got more work to do, and I'm ready for it.
Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it.
Tony Kurtz, who's running for 41st Assembly District here in the WRCO listening area.